name is Mrs. Wallen. I'm a second grade teacher at Adrian Burnett Elementary School. I love teaching and I love my students, and I'm sure your teacher does too. I really miss being with my students, so I'm excited about getting to spend a few minutes with you today. All right, you can find all activities on the KCS website under the Student Resource tab. This is Week 5's activity packet. Today's activity is science. Printed copies are given out at meal distribution sites from 10 a.m. until 12 p.m. If this video is hard for you to understand, turn on closed captions if available. Adjust the playback speed to slow down the video. Consider watching short clips, then pause, listen, and watch it again. Ask someone in your home to watch the video with you. Stop frequently. Talk to your partner about what you heard and understood, just like we do at school. We always talk to our partners. All right, when I begin a science lesson, I always begin with a phenomenon. I have a short video clip of some baby birds that I filmed in my yard last week. So as you watch this clip, I want you to think about what questions could I ask about the baby birds or the phenomenon of the baby birds? What do you wonder about the birds? All right, let's watch this clip. There they are. So what questions did you come up with? I'm going to give you just a second to think. I agree with you, boys and girls. I'm wondering the same thing too. Why are the baby birds' beaks open? I'm wondering, are the baby birds hungry? I'm wondering, why are they alone? Where is their mama? I also had the question of, what kind of birds are these? Good thinking, boys and girls. You did a great job with that activity. So good thinking. Later I found out that these are actually blue jays. So I wonder what we're going to learn today. I wonder what we're going to learn today. In science we are talking about living things. I wonder what we're going to learn today. So you just heard it. We're going to be learning about living things in science. So this is our goal, and our activity that we're going to be doing at the end is our goal. So I can find inherited traits in plants and identify variations in two of the same kind of plant. So we're talking about heredity, inheritance, and variation of traits in our science standard for today. Now it's been a while since I taught this lesson, so I'm thinking that some of you may be struggling with the word inherited. That's a big word, isn't it? Inherited just means it's passed down from your parents or your grandparents to you. And traits are the things that you have inherited, like your blue eyes or green eyes, maybe brown eyes, the color of your hair, the way you walk or the way you talk. Those are your traits. So we're going to be looking for inherited traits in plants and identify variations in two of the same kind of plant. So another word that you might be wondering about is variations. And variations means differences. So we all have differences, don't we? Variations. When we begin our science unit, we always begin with an essential question. Our essential question this week is, How are living things like their parents? So what do you see on this page? Do you notice anything that's living? Right, boys and girls. Babies and parents are living. Animals are living. And I noticed something. There's baby animals with their parents. I'm looking at them. I noticed some other things about these photographs too. I wonder if you will notice the same thing I do. So how are living things like their parents? When I think about living things, the first thing I think about are people. I think about you, boys and girls. Do you look like you did when you were first born? No, you don't look like you did then. You probably look more like this. These boys and girls are about the same age as you are. So you start life as a baby, but you grow up to be a parent. This is part of your life cycle. Every living thing goes through a life cycle. And when you were born, you became the offspring of your parent. What does that word mean? Offspring. I said offspring of your parent. So I'm thinking if I'm the offspring of my parent, that means I'm the child of my parent. Right, so offspring is just a child or the young of a parent. All right, children look similar to their parents when they're born, but as you go through the life cycle, you grow and you change. Some things about you will never change. The color of your eyes aren't going to change. The color of your hair might change a little bit as you grow, or if you do like me, you color your hair. Here are those college-age students. You've got a few years to go to get there. And then finally we see those parents. All right, so people have traits that are different from one another. If you look at these people, they're all humans, but each one looks different from the other one. No two of those people look exactly alike, do they? All right, so traits are the color of your eyes, or maybe the kind of hair you have. Look at this girl. She has curly hair, or maybe straight hair. Maybe the way you walk, or even the way you talk, are traits that are passed down from your parents. So if it's passed down from my parents, I know that means they're inherited. So my traits are inherited. I may not have every single trait that my parents have, but I may have some of the same traits as them. My mom had curly hair. I have curly hair when I don't straighten it and fix it. My youngest daughter has curly hair and my granddaughter has curly hair. So curly hair is a trait that's been passed down in my family from my mom to me and on and on. All right, you could be short or you could be tall. All those traits are things that you inherit from your parents and your grandparents. Now, we've talked a little about humans, life cycle and offspring and traits and inherited. Oh, now we're going to move on to another living thing, animals. Do animals have offspring? Of course they do, because we learned that offspring are their children. We see two little babies right here, don't we? So animals also pass traits to their offspring or their young. If you look at this picture of the ferrets, I see the mother under here. I think they're on top of her. I notice her fur color is black and white. Then when I look at the young ferrets, I notice that their color is black and white as well. So these are traits that have been passed down from the mother to the baby ferrets. When I look really close, I can see that there are some differences or variations in these two siblings. Siblings means the brothers and sisters. So when I look at them really closely, or when you look at them really closely, what do you notice about them that's different? It's a variation. Look close. Look at this guy. He doesn't look quite as dark as this little guy over here. Look at his fur under here. He's a lot darker, isn't he? Look at their masks. They both have masks, but this guy has a darker mask, darker fur, darker on his head. But both of them are black and white, and both of them do have traits from their parents. So they are similar to their parents. All right, now it's going to be your turn. All right, I see parents and their offspring in these pictures. So look at the first picture of the dogs. What do you notice? What traits has the puppy inherited from its parent? That's right, boys and girls. The puppy has inherited the brown and white fur. Does the puppy look exactly like its mama? No, but as it grows, it will begin to look more and more like its mama. What about the elephant? What do you notice? Right again. The color, they're both gray, aren't they? Although the shade is a little bit different. Look at their ears. Both of them have big ears and a long trunk. There's other things that they have that are the same. But when I'm looking at those elephants, that's what I notice first. What does the mother elephant have that the baby doesn't? Right, the baby doesn't have those tusks yet, does it? So we see that the animals inherit traits from their parents, although they don't look exactly like their parents. All right, so now we're going to move on to another living thing. We're going to talk about plants. Do adult plants have offspring? What do you think? Thumbs up if you think they do. Thumbs down if you think they don't. Here we go. Do adult plants have offspring? Dun, 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 dun. Offspring. Another word for an offspring is a seedling. Over here is the adult plant. Now, I know something. Offspring cannot produce seeds, but adult plants can produce seeds. Now, when I look at these two plants, I'm wondering if they're related, because if I go outside and I look and I see this one popping up from the earth, can I figure out that it's the same plant as this just from looking at the offspring or the seedling? Maybe. Let's look real close and let's see what these two have in common. So the offspring has a seed and roots. The adult has a seed and roots. The offspring and the adult both have long leaves. Both are green. What's the difference? Well, you can see it. There's a flower over here and it's bigger. But this little seedling is going to go through its life cycle and it will look like the adult flower. So there you see the stages of the plant's life cycle. All right, so now we're going to look at the sunflower. Young plants are a little bit like their parents, but they're also different. Young plants may inherit traits from their parents. Let's look at this young plant of the sunflower. I'm looking at the leaves. I'm looking at the leaves on the full-grown sunflower, the adult. Do they look the same? Very similar. I can look at these leaves and tell this is going to be a sunflower. So when I go outside and I see some sunflowers that are blooming and I look real close by and I see these, I'm going to know that they're sunflowers too because they have inherited traits from the adult sunflower. Now, I love to go into the woods. When I go into the woods, I always look for ferns. They're one of my favorite plants. So when I go into the woods and I see a little guy that looks like this, I notice he has a stem The stem curls. But then I look really close at it and I notice that the leaves look like the leaves or the fronds on a fern. Look at that. Then I go walk a few steps away and I'm going to see this adult fern. And I'm going to know that this is a fern. It's the offspring. It's inherited traits from its parent. Does it look exactly the same? No, but as it grows, it's going to look more and more like the adult. Now here is another offspring. I get these all the time in my flower bed. These are from the conifer family, pine trees. Sometimes I go out and I look in my flower bed and here they are. I look really close at them and I see they have needles. Then I look up and I look about 100 yards away and I see a grove of pine trees. So I know that this is an offspring of the pine tree. What is this? A pine cone? I think the pine cone would be the seed. All right, so here we see a pine forest in the first picture and a pine forest off in the distance. Now, as I look at this picture, I can see a lot of baby or younger trees. Well, these trees are the offspring of the pine. I can tell that these are the offspring of the pine because they have pine needles and they're green and they're near the forest of the pines. But are they exactly the same? No, but I can tell they are related by the traits they have. The young tree is not going to have a big, thick trunk like the older tree has. But I can tell that they are related, even though they're not the exact same size or the exact same shape. And did you know that no two pine trees have the same amount of pine needles on them? Me either. I just found that out. Very interesting. This plant is on my front porch. Oh, wait a minute. That's actually two plants. But they're both called a shamrock plant. I'm looking at this shamrock plant and I see variations. Remember, variations means differences. So these two plants are the same kind. I'm remembering back with our goal, our learning goal, that we're going to be looking for two plants of the same kind. And we're going to be comparing them and looking for inherited traits and differences. So this plant is a good example. Okay, so boys and girls, let's look and see what are the variations in these two plants. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make me a little T-chart. I want to see what's the same, what's different. What do you think is the same about these two plants, besides both of them are shamrock? What's the same? What do both of them have? You're right. They both have leaves. They're both shamrock. That's right. Is there anything else that they have that's the same? Yeah, they both have flowers. Anything else? What about differences? What do you see are differences in this plant? Some are easy to see. Some are a little harder. So we see the leaves are different sizes. What else do you see? That's right, boys and girls. The color of the leaves and flowers are different. So these plants, the shamrock plant, these are green and these are purple. The flowers on the purple one are pink and the flowers on the green one are white. But when I look even closer, look at this plant. Look at the purple shamrock. There are variations. Each leaf doesn't look exactly like the other one. There are different shades of purple on the leaves. There are different shades of green on these leaves. I can definitely see a lighter pattern on the inside of the leaf. So when I looked really closely, boys and girls, I could see the variations in the plant. Isn't it wonderful? All right, so the next time that you go through a beautiful flower garden, I want you to take your time and look at the flowers. Look at the flowers in the plants in the garden. Look at the stems. Look at the petals. Look at the flowers. Look at the leaves or the foliage. Some of these plants are going to be the exact same kind of plant, but they're going to have variations. If you look at the picture on the right, these are foxgloves. Each one of these plants is a foxglove, but they don't look exactly the same. They're similar to each other, but they have variations. There's a burgundy one, white, pink. Some of them are fuller with flowers. Some of them have more buds on them. Some have more greenery. So within the same type of flower, there can be variations. All right, so now it's your turn. You're going to go on an investigative activity. So what you're going to do is you're going to observe and find plant variations between two of the same kind of plant. You could even look for the offspring and the parent plants. So you're going to need to gather up your materials. So you're going to take your packet with you or your paper, your pencil and crayons. Something you might want to do before you head out is Google some different types of plants. So with an adult, maybe you could go to your computer or your phone and look up plants such as an oak tree or a maple tree, hosta plants, tulips, impatiens or marigolds. There's thousands of plants. Actually, there's around 400,000 different species of plants or different kinds of plants. All right, so step one, you're going to take a nature walk with an adult. See if you can identify two different plants of the same kind. Remember, that was our goal. So for example, 2 pine trees, 2 dandelions, 2 rose bushes. I know something about all these plants and flowers. I want you to look closely at the leaves, stems, flower blooms, the bark of trees. I want you to identify any similarities or differences in the plants. What do we call that? Variations. Good job, boys and girls. You're so smart. All right. After you found your 2 plants, you've looked at them, you've noticed things that are different about the plants, things that are the same about the plants. I want you to draw your plant on the back of your paper, or you could take a picture if you wanted to. But draw your plants, label your plants if you can. That means if I have a rose, I'm going to write rose next to my flower. Then you're going to make a T-chart like I did earlier. You're going to list what you notice is the same and what is different about the plants on your T-chart. Now, if you really, really want to grow and be a better student, you're going to take this activity one step further. You're going to write or draw any observations, questions, or conclusions that you make about the related plants that you found. Sounds like fun, doesn't it? I love this activity. I've already done this activity, so I'm going to show you my examples. So I just went out here in my front yard. In my front yard, I know that I have a Japanese maple. And over here, I have a Japanese maple. But I noticed something. Even though both of these are Japanese maples, they look a little bit different. They've inherited some of the same traits. I see both are red, both have leaves, both are kind of pointy in their leaves, There are some big differences in these Japanese maples. This one, when I looked really close at the leaves are kind of lacy looking, really pointed and skinny, real fine. But these leaves are thicker, more defined. You could count the points on them easily. So both of these are Japanese maples, but there are a lot of differences or variations. I could even find variations within the same plant, such as the number of leaves or the color of the leaves in each plant. Okay, I'm not done yet. I have another example, and most of us see this outside right now because this is the season of the honeysuckle. They are everywhere right now. I love honeysuckle. I love to smell the honeysuckle. Sometimes I even like to pop off the end of the honeysuckle and sip on them a little bit. All right, so I looked at this picture, or this vine, and I know that this is a honeysuckle. But I kept walking on through the yard and around, and I noticed this plant. It's very similar to the honeysuckle, so it made me question, could this plant be a honeysuckle too? So I started looking at both the plants, and I started comparing the plants. So I looked at this one, the first one. I looked at the flowers. They're yellow and white. They have green leaves. The leaves are very pointy, and they were climbing everywhere on the fence and the trees everywhere. Then I come over here and I look at this one. There are some similarities. The flowers, looking at the flowers, they're orange and pinkish, but both of the flowers are tube-like. They look a lot alike. The same kind of flower. They really look like a honeysuckle. The leaves are a little bit different. I can pop the end off of these flowers just like I could the others. So I think these are related plants. They're related honeysuckle plants with variations. Now I made a T-chart just like you have to do. I wrote same and different. So what was the same? Both had two black flowers. Both had green leaves and climbing vines. They're both honeysuckle, and both of them were very fragrant. But what was different? One had orange flowers. One had yellow and white flowers. One had round leaves, and the other had pointy leaves. So those are some variations. They inherited some of the same traits. They're variations. So I took it one step further. I like to be a high flyer, so I wanted to write about what I had seen. So I wrote about my observation. This is my evidence that I needed to prove that both of these plants were actually honeysuckle. So here's what I wrote. I noticed that the first vine looked like honeysuckle. It has pointed leaves with yellow and white two black flowers. The other vine looks like a honeysuckle to me as well, although there are variations in the shape of the leaf and the color of the flower. The flower is also two black, but they are orange. The flowers are similar except for their color and size. Both smell fragrant, and both are on vines that climb on their surroundings. After I looked up honeysuckle vines and read that there are many variations, then I saw photos of both of the honeysuckle vines that I chose. Seeing the different honeysuckle vines really helped me to understand that although plants are the same kind, there can be many variations in traits. And guess what? I wanted to use a few of the vocabulary words like variations and traits in my writing. All right, boys and girls, I hope you have enjoyed this lesson as much as I have. I hope you get outside and you find some plants, you find some offspring and some adults, and you learn so much as you go outside.